Steph mentioned, whenever she sees you with the two black eyes, she smiles in a way because it just exemplifies your toughness. Do you feel tough in these kinds of situations with these two black eyes?
I mean, that's what people keep telling me. Every time she sees me, she smiles and then she says, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "You don't need to be sorry. This is what it is." And when I'm playing, like, I forget about it, and then I go and look in the mirror. I'm like, "Oh shit, they're still there." So yeah, I don't really think too much about it because I don't necessarily feel them all the time.
Yeah, and you're still able to see completely fine.
Yep.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
All right, perfect. I think.
Picture the challenge.
The resilient, nature of our team. I think one other thing that sometimes goes missed is just the character of these women, right? Especially this group that's been here, that's gone through all of this, and then the ones that we brought in with O and Shay and AP. I mean, these are women who care about winning. These are women who care about one another. These are women who sacrifice every single day.
Originally, I was like, I just need to get the swelling to go down in my forehead. So I put a patch, slept with it. The next day, woke up, and I was like, okay, the bump is almost gone, but now I have two black eyes. So that was tragic. But I mean, it's at this point, it's unfortunately won't be able to hide it. People know, so just rolling with it.
Were you able to hide it for the photo shoots?
The makeup artist did a really, really, really good job. And people that hadn't met me before were like, "Oh, I can't even tell." I'm like, okay, that's good. We'll take it. But I'm hoping they'll do some editing in the post.
Aaliyah Boston didn't just play a great game. She dropped a line that could define the entire season. After Indiana's stunning win in Los Angeles, she looked into the cameras and said 3 simple words: "Next woman up." It wasn't just talk. She had just dominated both ends of the floor with 22 points, 11 rebounds, and a career-high 6 steals, finishing it all off with the game-sealing stop that silenced the Sparks. And right beside her, a veteran guard the league had all but forgotten, Odyssey Sims, who delivered 21 points and the dagger floater against her former team. This wasn't just a road win. This was survival turning into identity. For weeks, critics said the Fever were collapsing, that without Caitlin Clark, their season was slipping away. Instead, they went into a building where they'd been beaten 3 times already and flipped the script. So how did Indiana pull this off? And why does this game feel like the turning point for their entire playoff run? Stick around, because this wasn't just a win. This was the moment the Fever announced they're here to fight. For Indiana, the night in Los Angeles wasn't just another game. It was a fork in the road. This has been a roller coaster season, full of peaks that made fans dream and valleys that made critics question whether the Fever were built for the grind. And by the time they hit LA, the outlook was grim. Caitlin Clark was still sidelined with that nagging groin injury. Sophie Cunningham gone. Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald also out. That's 4 guards, 4 playmakers, 4 voices missing from the rotation. For most teams, that's not just a disadvantage. That's a death sentence in a playoff race this tight. And let's not forget the history. The Sparks had swept Indiana all season long. 3 games, 3 losses, each one more frustrating than the last. To the outside world, it looked like Los Angeles had the Fever's number, and now they had home court on their side. Then there was the math. Indiana was sitting in 6th, clinging to a playoff spot, while LA was just 2 games back in 9th. One stumble here, and the Sparks are breathing down their necks. One more loss, and the headlines practically write themselves. Indiana collapse underway. So when the Fever walked onto that floor, they weren't just playing another regular season game. They were walking into a test that could decide how the rest of the year is remembered, as a fade into disappointment, or as the night they finally proved they could withstand the storm. And the way they answered? It started with grit. You could see on every possession. If you want to understand the Fever's mindset that night, all you had to do was look at Lexi Hull's face. 2 black eyes from a brutal collision in the previous game, and she still laced up, checked in, and played like nothing was wrong. No protective rest, no holding back. She ran through screens, threw herself on the floor for loose balls, and dug into defenders like the bruises weren't even there. That kind of toughness isn't something you coach. It's contagious. Hull's presence on the court became a message in itself. Pain doesn't stop us, and excuses aren't part of the rotation. If she could fight through it, then everyone else had to match her energy. And this wasn't just about one player. Indiana has been repeating the same mantra all season long: next woman up. But in Los Angeles, you could see it alive in real time. Every player who checked in carried more than their usual load. Every possession was played like it could swing the season, and every shot was taken with the trust that the group would live with the result. This wasn't resilience on a whiteboard. It was resilience with bruises, with black eyes, with bodies held together by tape and adrenaline. And it set the tone for the moment that flipped the game, when a veteran guard the league had written off suddenly reminded everyone she still had a chapter left to write. When the Fever needed someone to take control, the answer didn't come from the stat sheet, the scouting report, or even the starting lineup. It came from a 31-year-old veteran who has seen just about everything this league can throw at you: Odyssey Sims. For years, Sims has been the definition of persistence. She's been an all-star, she's been waived, she's been signed on hardship deals, cut, doubted, and overlooked more times than most players could stomach. And yet, every time, she's found her way back. That's why this night felt different. Facing her former team, in their building, the stage was set for a performance that was part redemption, part statement, and she delivered. 21 points. But don't let the number fool you. It wasn't about how much she scored. It was about when she scored. She slowed the game down when the Sparks tried to push. She sped it up when Indiana needed a jolt. She ripped the ball clean from Kelsey Plum and finished with her left like she'd been waiting her whole career for that exact possession. Then came the shot everyone remembers. With just 13.6 seconds left, the ball found Sims' hands. No panic, no hesitation. Just a quick floater over outstretched arms, perfect touch, nothing but net. That bucket didn't just give Indiana the lead. It ripped the air out of the arena and reminded the league that veterans don't forget how to close. And when the microphones came out afterward, Sims summed it all up with one line: if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's not just a motto. That's her life. That's her career. And now, it's the exact mindset the Fever are carrying into the postseason push. But while Sims was the closer, the foundation of this win was still Aaliyah Boston, who built her empire in the paint and ended the game with a moment that might already be etched into Fever history. Every great team needs a cornerstone, and for Indiana, that cornerstone is Aliyah Boston. From the opening tip in Los Angeles, she wasn't just playing, she was imposing her will. She planted herself deep in the paint, sealed defenders with that wide, unshakable base, and made it clear: if you gave her the ball inside, the possession was already over. The box score tells part of the story: 22 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and a career-high 6 steals. But numbers don't capture how suffocating she was. Every time the Sparks tried to attack the rim, Boston was waiting. Every time they gambled on leaving her single-covered, she punished them. And when they sent help, she had the patience to kick out, reset the offense, and force LA to scramble. On defense, she was even scarier. Boston didn't just protect the rim, she dismantled plays before they even got there. 6 steals from a center? That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you read the floor like a guard, anticipate the pass before it leaves the ball handler's hands, and then rip it away like it belonged to you all along. And then came the signature. 1.9 seconds left, Sparks desperate, throwing up one last prayer. Boston saw it, timed it, and snatched the ball out of the sky. No foul, no flinch, no second chance. Just game over. That was her stamp, a superstar moment in only her second season. Think about the company she's stepping into: Sylvia Fowles, Lisa Leslie, Tamika Catchings. Players who didn't just fill up stat sheets, but controlled the outcome of games by force of presence. Boston already looks like she belongs in that lineage. And in Los Angeles, she didn't just play like a star. She played like the future of the franchise. But as dominant as Boston was, the Fever didn't win because of 1 or 2 highlights. They won because of all the dirty work, the little plays that never make the post-game headlines, but decide whether the season survives or slips away. The highlight reels will always show Boston's steal or Sims' dagger floater. But the truth is, Indiana won this game in the margins, in the hustle plays that don't trend on social media but decide playoff races. It was offensive rebounds that kept possessions alive when shots clanked off the rim. It was loose balls dived on like they were worth gold. It was deflections, fingertips just grazing a pass that threw off LA's rhythm and forced bad looks. Those aren't glamorous plays. But in games like this, they're the difference between heartbreak and survival. Look at the tape and you see it everywhere. Boston ripping down a board in traffic that should have belonged to the Sparks. Lexi Hull sliding across the lane for a stunt that bought just enough time for a closeout. Aerial Powers checking in off the bench and sparking runs with pure energy. Even the players on the sideline were locked in, pointing, clapping, talking through every defensive set like they were on the floor themselves. This was the Fever saying, if the game is going to get ugly, then we'll own ugly. Every possession came with urgency. Every rebound, every cut, every hand in the passing lane carried extra weight. And when you stack all those small things on top of each other, they add up to something massive, the kind of win that changes a season. But none of that works without belief. And belief has to come from the top, from the voices that make a team trust themselves when the pressure hits. Ask any player after the game what fueled this win, and the answer wasn't just toughness or hustle, it was trust. From the very beginning of the season, the Fever's coaches drilled one message over and over: shoot with confidence, play with confidence, and trust the work you've put in. That message mattered in Los Angeles. Odyssey Sims had every reason to hesitate. She had missed looks earlier, her three ball wasn't falling, and the game was hanging in the balance. But instead of shrinking, she kept attacking. Why? Because she knew her coaches weren't going to yank her for taking shots, and her teammates weren't going to roll their eyes if she missed. That's what trust does. It removes hesitation. And it wasn't just Sims. Aaliyah Boston didn't force bad shots when LA doubled her. She trusted her teammates to make the right plays if she kicked it out. Lexi Hull, bruised and battered, still launched threes when she was open because she knew the team wanted her to. Aerial Powers came off the bench gunning because that's exactly what the Fever needed her to do. This is what separates a fractured roster from a resilient one. Indiana's depth players aren't just filling minutes, they're stepping onto the court with the belief that they belong there. And when you mix that trust with toughness, suddenly a shorthanded team doesn't look fragile anymore. It looks dangerous. But looming over all of this is the name nobody can stop talking about, the one player who hasn't returned yet, and whose comeback could change everything. All night long, one name hovered over the conversation: Caitlin Clark. She wasn't in uniform, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Before tip-off, cameras caught her in team gear, moving through warm-ups, taking jumpers, jogging through sets. It wasn't full-speed action, but for the first time in weeks, Fever fans had reason to believe the wait might finally be ending. And that's the kind of thing that shifts energy, even when she doesn't play a single minute. Teammates glance over during shoot-around and feel a spark. Fans record every rep and flood social media with clips. Broadcasters can't stop replaying her threes, even in practice. The buzz is real, and it's contagious. But Clark's return isn't just about hype, it's about gravity. When she's on the floor, defenses stretch 2 steps further out, sometimes 3. That opens lanes for Boston to seal inside. It frees up Kelsey Mitchell to find cleaner looks, and it forces opponents to pick their poison. You collapse on Clark, she'll dish to a shooter. You stay home, she'll launch from the logo. Either way, she bends the game in ways nobody else on Indiana's roster can. The risk, of course, is timing. Groin injuries don't play by your schedule. Push too hard too soon, and the season could end in an instant. But with 5 games left and playoff positioning hanging by a thread, the Fever are staring at a delicate balance. Wait too long and risk running out of time, bring her back too soon and risk losing her altogether. That's why this win in Los Angeles mattered so much. It bought the Fever breathing room. It proved they can survive without Clark. And it set the stage for what could be the most dramatic late-season return in the league. And if that return happens, the entire playoff picture changes overnight. This win didn't just pad Indiana's confidence, it flipped the standings conversation. Coming in, the Fever were hanging on to 6th place by a thread, with Seattle and Los Angeles closing in. A single slip, and the playoff cushion could have evaporated. Instead, Indiana pushed the Sparks back, created daylight between themselves and the storm, and suddenly turned a fragile spot into something sturdier. That shift matters. 6th place isn't just a number, it's a lifeline. Stay there, and you avoid the nightmare of tumbling into the play-in mess. Climb even higher, and you could draw a matchup that plays to Indiana's strengths. Right now, that could mean Dallas, maybe Minnesota. Both tough, both physical, but both teams Indiana has shown flashes against. And imagine what happens if Caitlin Clark returns before the regular season closes. You go from a shorthanded squad clawing to hold the line to a fully loaded roster peaking at the exact right moment. That changes scouting reports, changes rotations, changes everything about how opponents prepare. For the Sparks, this loss was a gut punch. For Seattle, it's a warning that their chase just got harder. And for Indiana, it's a reminder that their destiny isn't in other teams' hands anymore. Win the games in front of you, and not only do you secure a playoff berth, you head into it with momentum. But maybe the biggest story isn't just the playoff math. It's what this win revealed about who the Fever are becoming, a team growing up right in front of our eyes. At the start of the season, every headline stamped the Fever with one label: Caitlin Clark's team. Every camera followed her. Every story framed Indiana through her spotlight. And yes, Clark is the star, the ratings magnet, the franchise face. But this win in Los Angeles proved something that should terrify the rest of the league. Indiana isn't just one player anymore. Look at how this group has evolved. Aaliyah Boston has stepped firmly into superstar territory, not just as a dominant post presence, but as the kind of leader who can dictate the flow on both ends. Odyssey Sims reminded everyone that experience and grit don't disappear just because your name isn't trending. Lexi Hull showed that toughness isn't measured by points, but by the willingness to fight through pain and still give your team everything you've got. And role players like Aerial Powers brought energy that swung momentum in moments that could have gone either way. This is how contenders are built. Not overnight, not with one lottery pick, but with culture. The kind of next woman up mentality Boston described. The Fever are learning to win the hard way, which also means they're learning to trust each other in the moments that define a season. And that's what makes this so important. This wasn't a game about survival. It was a game about transformation. For the first time, Indiana looked less like a team clinging to an identity and more like a group forging one. A group that's growing up under fire with bruises and battle scars to prove it. And with Caitlin Clark inching closer to a return, that growth could be the exact difference between just making the playoffs and making real noise once they get there. Resilience is a word every team throws around, but in Los Angeles, the Fever showed what it actually looks like. Odyssey Sims reminded the league that veterans don't fade, they sharpen. Lexi Hull turned bruises into fuel and proved toughness can inspire more than any speech. Aaliyah Boston delivered the kind of all-around performance that puts her name alongside the greats, then sealed the game with a superstar's calm. Together, they gave Indiana more than just a win. They gave the team a habit, the habit of fighting through chaos, trusting each other, and closing when everything is on the line. That's the kind of identity that lasts longer than one night in August. And now, with Caitlin Clark inching closer to a return, the Fever don't just look like survivors hanging on to a playoff seed. They look like a team ready to cause problems the moment the postseason begins. So yes, this was a statement, not a headline, not a slogan, but a warning. The Fever aren't folding, they're building. And the rest of the league better be ready when Indiana shows up in September with nothing to lose and everything to prove. If you're riding with this squad, let us hear from you in the comments. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next breakdown. Because what we just saw wasn't the end of Indiana's season, it might be the beginning of something much bigger.